Welcome to Roseflower Radio, the show that goes behind the scenes of your favorite independent artists and creatives. I'm your co-host, Micah Wilson.
And I'm your co-host, Finlay Matthias. This week on the podcast, we had Joe Welch.
Yes.
He is the co-founder of Quadio. He is the founder of Day to Day. These are two apps that help musicians. He works specifically with growing musicians to really break down the big, scary feat of being an artist in this day and age.
He does it so well.
And with a smile.
Yeah, and he's just a good-looking dude. What I wanted to say is that if you guys are an artist, independent, all that, which a lot of you guys are, please watch this all the way through because you're going to get a lot of knowledge. And also reach out to Joe at the end of it because he would love to talk to you. But yeah, really awesome dude. I can't wait for you guys to check it out. And if you're listening here on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure to follow us. And if you're listening on/watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you will never miss another podcast, live stream, you know, the whole deal. So thank you guys and enjoy. So you said you're normally in Colorado, but you're just with family right now in Boston?
Yeah, I'm in Boston just for a little bit of August. Like we always do family trips, and then I'm headed back to Denver in September. When are you going back? Or have you been back all summer, or have you
I've not been back at all.
Yeah.
My sister was moving too, so I was helping her for like a week, but then that was about it. Also, wait,
Gotcha.
Are you a Celtics fan or a Nuggets fan, or do you watch basketball?
Dude, I can't lie to you. I don't watch sports a lot, which
Okay.
I know is like it stops these conversations in their tracks. But I was a little bit of a Nuggets fan towards the end with when all the shit
'Cause
that
they just
happened
won,
with
yeah.
Denver. So I mean, it's hard not
He's
to.
hopping
Yeah,
on the
exactly.
train.
Yeah, it's all
Very bandwagon though.
We accept you with open arms as a bandwagon.
I'm a music guy, not a sports guy.
That's
There you
awesome.
go.
Well, speaking of music, let's talk about you because I feel like the way that you go about music is a little bit different than the average. Because I know that you're a DJ on the side as well. But let's just talk about where did you get started, like with the ideas of Quadio, for example?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah. All right, let's see. Yeah, I haven't told this story in a while. But so I produce music too. I DJ and stuff like that. I've been producing music since 2014, I think. And so when I was in school and college, loved making music, would make music all the time. I was an econ major, but, I was in the library making music, all that stuff. But I don't know, it's just interesting. It was like, I love making music. I know that. But this was also pre-TikTok days. And it was just kind of like, what the hell do I do with this? Like, how do I take this to the next level? Like, what is the path here when all I know is my econ major, parents telling me that, finance, stuff like that is kind of the move. It's just like, what the hell do I do here? And so senior year, there were actually two kind of interesting things that happened that inspired Quadio. One was this idea of me and my roommate were just kind of messing around. We made this track that was probably pretty below average, to be honest, but we put it on SoundCloud. And people around campus were we're really vibing with it. And it was cool. And it was my kind of first experience of this kind of the power of your local scene. And specifically with the college angle, this kind of school spirit, people love being my boy made this, he goes to school with me. Totally. And so that was really interesting. And so that was one of the first kind of catalysts there. It's could you build a platform that really tries to harness that locality and that kind of school spirit? And then the second one was that I took a songwriting class. There was one niche songwriting class offered at my school, and I finally took it. I finally got in senior year. It was 15 kids in it. And I met all of these insanely talented creators and songwriters who I had been on campus with for literally 4 straight years. I think I had classes with some of them, econ classes or some shit like that. But I just had they made music, and people just didn't really wear it on their sleeve. It was just hard to tell kind of who made music. And so it was just damn, imagine what could have happened if I'd known about you from the second I stepped on campus. Imagine those 4 years we could have had collaborating, making music. Yeah. Exactly, those connections. So those two things kind of inspired the whole Quadio experience of could we build a platform that essentially acts as kind of that creative bridge to connect and match up creators on campuses, but then also kind of harness that school spirit and that locality to propel you, all school to then there was a whole chart system essentially. Yeah. And so the core idea was really around creative connection on your campus, because a lot of these schools and I think they're getting better now, but we're pretty antiquated in how they approach like a modern creative experience. And so, there just wasn't a lot of transparency into who the creators were and who was making music and stuff like that. So that was kind of inspiration, I guess.
For sure. And I want to we'll get this chronological, so I'm kind of flipping it around a bit, but then I want to come back and get everything. But like, you're from Colorado originally? Is that where you're born and raised?
So I'm from Boston. I'm from outside of Boston. So I went to school in Western Mass at Williams. So very small school, like 2,000 kids. And then actually I moved out to Denver like a year ago. So then I spent most of my time in New York for the Quadio experience. Yeah, I mean, Denver's been pretty dope, I can't lie. But yeah, so I grew up outside Boston.
Yeah, okay. And then like childhood for you, I don't need to know everything, but like your first.
No, we do.
Actually, we do.
No,
we do need to know everything.
Yeah. No. All right. I mean, like basically sports, I guess, was like the theme. Like I don't really watch sports, but I play sports a lot. Like I played hockey in college, and it was kind of like that was my thing. Like our whole family's thing was just sports. So hockey, lacrosse, tennis, soccer, like all that stuff. It was very sports oriented. So I didn't actually get into the music stuff until like senior year of college, when that was like when Avicii was first coming onto the scene with like Levels and Drowning and all of that stuff. But I don't have any musical, like I can't read music, I can't play piano, I can't play any instruments because it was all kind of sports focused. So that's why I fell in love with producing, because it was so dope that you don't need to know that shit to get in the DAW and like program on MIDI. You can just kind of use your ear. So that's, I think, what made me fall in love, is that you can just lose yourself in the software without really having to know, the technical side, I guess, of reading music.
That's totally. That's what I think one of the many benefits that a lot of artists are dealing with right now, is being able to do a lot of stuff from home. Was there a specific person, or what was the catalyst for like you figuring out like a DAW or like getting into it?
Yeah. So one of my best friends, we grew up in the same hometown, up going to the same high school too, and he actually did know a little bit more about music. Like he could read music, he sang a little bit, and so I remember like he actually started making mashups first. Like this was like 2012 probably. You had like guys like Cap Slap Blau when they were first making mashups, like when SoundCloud was like just becoming a thing. It was that was like the golden, like these hidden gems of SoundCloud. But he started making mashups, and I was like, okay, this is pretty dope. Let me try to do that too. And then one summer he was like, yo, I think I want to try to get into production. And then I started getting into it too, and we formed a group called Everdav. That was like our first production group. But so he was definitely the guy who kind of got me into it. And then, as y'all know, once you like start getting into the music thing, it's just all consuming.
Yeah,
like we spent a whole summer
diving off the deep end.
Yeah, 100%.
Just totally dialed in all summer. So yeah.
Okay, so then we talked about your childhood. We kind of what the basis behind Quadio was. You started Quadio, or were in business in Quadio, with your step cousin. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, impressed that you actually, that you got exactly.
We're on our Nardwuar research.
We know what we're doing.
we got it.
So my question is, who went to who to start that? Like, which one of you approached the other one about doing that, or was it a group thing? And then what was it like being in business with family? Because we're in business as friends, and people, that's the two things people say: don't do business with friends and family. So I was curious to see what your experience was in that regard.
Totally, great question. I guess so. On the first one, in terms of how it started, so a lot of it was inspired by my kind of experience my senior year at school, being an artist and stuff like that. It was just like an idea I had floating around in my head, but I was an econ major. I had played hockey my whole life. No clue about like what the hell to do with it, right? Like how do you actually turn this idea into something that's actually tangible and it exists in reality? So Marcus is a little bit older than me. He's a step cousin. And he had also worked in music for a little bit. He's like worked at a few record labels. I think he was at Pandora Music or something like that, or Sirius XM, sorry. So he just kind of, he was more experienced, knew music a little bit better. So he was the one I kind of came with this like very early initial idea of some shit that could happen. And then that was really helpful because we were able to kind of dial in, just spend a lot of time focusing in on like, okay, what are the tangible steps that we can actually make this vision into a reality? So he was super helpful and continued to be throughout the entire experience of like taking this like idea and like not really sure where to go with it and like kind of, putting it somewhat into reality. So that was, I guess, how that happened. And then, the family thing is a great question. I mean, I will say I had a great experience with it, especially like because we were cousins. So, we don't, it's not like we see each other every day. So this was actually really dope to be able to, I guess, have this different level of our relationship that we did talk every day. So I think it actually has made us a lot closer and just like the whole family in general a lot closer. So I think there's definitely like, I don't know. I feel like you just need to be transparent and candid always. I feel like where the issues come up, which not to say no issues did arise, but is where you're kind of like, I don't know, you're kind of passive aggressive or you just don't kind of say exactly how you're like, feeling, but
you're kind of like hiding, you're trying to protect that relationship outside of the work by maybe not saying what you need to say within the work, basically.
Exactly. Spot on. And so what we kind of learned is that like, we're all adults here. We all want what's best. So the best way to go about it to preserve, because it's almost like, it's almost counterintuitive because like you're trying to preserve it by not really speaking your opinions, but the way to do it is just to be honest because it's pretty easy to tell, when people are kind of a little bit rattled or whatever. I would say, I know people say don't go into business with family. I think there are fair points there, but at the same time, it was a great experience for us, I think. And if you are able to just be very honest and transparent, there's a really cool ability to make that bond a lot stronger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And then I want to just quickly, so you guys know each other in a way, have discussed, are kind of friends, have been for a while.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
I was the one who reached out to you, Joe, because you posted a TikTok that was like, it was something like POV, you spent the last 3 years building a company with your best friends or something. Yeah. And then there was a montage of a bunch of different clips. And one of them was you doing a speech at our school.
Yeah.
And I was in the video. I was there.
No way.
So I was just on TikTok scrolling, and all of a sudden, there I was.
That's crazy. I did not know you were in that video.
Yeah, because I went to, so Joe, LACM was part of Quadio, for those who don't know, and you, and I believe maybe Marcus too, came to LACM and were promoting it, and you did like a speech kind of thing, a talk about it, and I was there, and I remember being there, and then I saw that video, and I zoomed in, I was like, wait a minute, and there I was, or like the back of my head sitting there.
Damn, that's impressive spot work because that montage goes quick too. Like you were right on there. That's some good work.
He was scanning everything, bro. That's
it came
how you consume all content. You're just like looking for yourself, bro.
I assume I'm in every video on my TikTok page. It just so happens that I was so right for
this time. It paid off.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
that's
one
dope.
time. Well, what's really cool about that is then my side of it was this is maybe around the same time because he's a year older than me school wise. But age-wise, we were born on the exact same day, which is crazy.
No way.
Yeah, bro, twins, dog. But what's crazy is you reached out, like, I think it was with Quadio a little bit before COVID, maybe? I can't really remember.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, I remember all this shit. Yeah, I remember being at LACM, and then I remember hitting you up because I was in Rhode Island because it was during COVID, and so we had gone. Yeah, and so I remember DMing you. Yeah, because what was that song? Caught Up. It was something I think. Yeah.
Good memory,
Fire
dude.
Track. Of course. Yeah, and we had a great chat. Yeah.
Yeah, and then since then it's just been. It was one of those things where I was doing a lot of that. I got on Quadio. I was checking out, and one of the reasons why I decided this is like where it gets crazy here. One of the reasons where I decided to go to that school was I was like, I had a couple of options. I was looking around, but I was like, I wonder what other creatives are already on this app at this school. So I checked it out before I officially got accepted and applied, just to see. And there were a bunch of kids there, and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. So
is there anybody who you now know?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was one of those things.
That's so cool to hear. I mean, these are like all the things we talk about in the office. Like, how dope would that be if you look at artists before you go to campus? It's crazy actually.
What's weird about all this is like, you and I talked that one day, whatever. I got the app. It was awesome. I loved the experience. And then a little bit later, I used that app to kind of just see what's going on at this school. I end up going to that school. He knows you because you went to that school. He found you on TikTok. we've been communicating, and now all three of us are
Now
sitting
we're all here.
in the podcast. It's just like, it's one of those things
Crazy.
where it's like, yeah, man, like that ain't no coinky dink, you know?
Yeah.
I think
No,
it's
it is
super cool.
wild. I mean, I did not expect to see your face when I just hopped on
I
this
know.
Zoom.
We were
Pleasantly
talking about that
surprised.
because I was like, I don't think he knows that I'm a part of this.
Wild.
Yeah, so then, well, that's the other thing is let's talk about, the reason why I recently hit you back up and why we were communicating was because I was kind of going under an artistic change, right?
Yeah.
In the same vein, you have gone under your own artistic change with Day to Day.
Yeah.
I've had the pleasure with being able to, like, you know, actually kind of like sit there and give feedback and do some testing and stuff, which has been an awesome experience. But for those who don't know, give the
Give
speech.
us the little pit. Little pitch.
Yeah, totally. I'll just like provide more context because it's helpful in kind of this whole storyline. So yeah, so basically, Quadio was dope. It was basically like the problem we were kind of going after mainly is this idea of creative connection and like, you know, really, you know, if you're a producer, easily finding a songwriter, stuff like that, which obviously, you know, is something that exists in the world as a problem. And so it was helpful to try to approach it and try to come at the problem with our own solution. But throughout that experience, I got the privilege of being able to do so many kind of boots on the ground, community building things, events, just got to talk with so many artists like the LACM event. And it was just fascinating, honestly, like just really understanding the pain points of an artist throughout all of those conversations and like really intimately understanding the difficulties in the journey, like where the struggles are. And so I guess a more pressing kind of problem arose that I wanted to tackle. And that's kind of today started, but essentially like, it's just a really interesting time, I feel like, to be an artist, where I would make an argument that it's one of the best times ever to be an independent artist because the tools to make music are so accessible. It's so easy.
Absolutely.
You have the potential of reaching a global audience from your bedroom with platforms like TikTok. The issue, though, is that because of all that you can do now, it's like an entirely new problem of actually having to do it all. And so as an artist, you become like a solo entrepreneur essentially, but you don't have a marketing department. You don't have a, you know, development team.
Yeah, you don't have graphic designers and video editors and like the whole team.
Like you're doing it all. And so that was just really interesting to observe because it felt like that was a very difficult thing and like continued to be more and more difficult for artists to manage over the long term. Because I'm a big believer in long-term consistency and like showing up daily, and like these little process-based actions will compound over time. And if you look at pretty much any artist who has a foundational fan base right now, they've been at it for years, right? Like overnight successes kind of happen, but a lot of times they'll fade out if you don't have that foundation. And so sustaining all that you have to do as a musician in this day and age is really difficult over the long term. And so essentially with Day to Day, that was a lot of the inspiration, is like, could we try to approach this problem by creating a platform that helps artists stay on track, stay consistent, help with guidance on like, I want to be an artist. What the hell do I do? Like, where do I even start? You know, I want to post on TikTok. What the hell do I do? How do I translate my brand identity? So almost kind of, you know, providing this like assistant of sorts in your journey while also helping you stay accountable and consistent over the long term. So I guess like the kind of like, you know, in the Instagram bio, it says where musicians stay on track, but the whole higher level context is kind of like, there's a lot of shit you got to do as an artist. And like, we want to be there to help you do it and stay accountable over the long term to sticking with it.
And it's such a good idea because I think that, in the same way, what you were just saying is how like where this problem or where this, you realized the problem was because you were going and having connections with artists and like actually starting to understand, no, this is something that I'm struggling with. And then you're seeing similarities and being like, okay, there's a problem. Let's fix it. You know? There's a lot of selflessness in that action of just being like, no, I want to help people. Like that's ultimately what your goal is. And that's, I give you, you know, hats off to that to start.
Fair. I mean, I guess to be a little more selfish with it, I also am an artist, right? So I'm like, can I build a tool that helps me figure this problem out, and then, you know, maybe it'll be helpful for other people too.
Most extra thing ever. He just needed to, instead of making a Google Calendar for everything he needed to do, he was like, I got to make a whole app about this.
Well, so that's the thing. Are you planning on it being an app? Are you planning on it being I know that there was talk about.
So I guess like, totally, like how it actually manifests.
Yeah.
So right now it exists as like a desktop experience and an app, kind of like, I guess, to dive into like the actual experience. So a lot of what we're actually trying to do. So I didn't really mention this, but throughout Quadio, we also started a management group too. And so that was also a fascinating experience to learn about the role of the day-to-day manager and how valuable that role can be for an artist, where the manager was, every day texting the artist about like the to-do day, helping the artist strategize on release identities and all of that kind of shit. There's just kind of an issue right now where there's a ton of dope artists, like more and more popping up every day, like we were talking about, but there's actually not a ton of, and so you do kind of have this supply demand problem, and even if there were a lot of managers, a lot of them work on commission, right? So it's like it's hard to take a chance on an artist with very little traction because you're not really getting paid. The incentives aren't necessarily there for the manager side. So some of what we're actually trying to replicate here is taking that day-to-day management service and actually trying to automate it of sorts into this platform. So we actually created this character Daisy from Day-to-Day, who basically helps the artist strategize on things, helps them stay accountable with like daily reminders about things. So we're almost, and then the core of it is basically like a project management tool that's specific for the music journey. So you can link your documents, you can upload your songs, and then you can have tasks and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of early days. It's fun kind of experimenting with the artists that are on the platform to see what they want, what they don't, like how Daisy can be more helpful and stuff like that. And so one thing we're trying to do now is, rather than having the artists have to like put in all their tasks and kind of like project manage their whole thing, kind of replicating some similar action to how the day-to-day manager operates, is that taking inputs from the artist of like what their intentions are and what they're working towards. So like, hey, I have a release coming up, or like, I want to promote this show. And then essentially having Daisy be able to take those inputs and automatically generate a game plan for the artist so that project is essentially facilitated. And then all the artist has to do is stay accountable to actually do it themselves. But the whole plan of action is there, and they can edit, they can change things, but it's kind of like a good backbone to go off of.
So how would that be generated? Is that like an AI? Are you looking towards the AI sort of thing?
Yes. So right now we're kind of doing it manually. So like the process facilitated through Daisy, but we, from our experience at the record label and the management group, will essentially like process what the artist is saying and then, map out a game plan and then give it to them in the platform just like manually. But goal here, because like that's not very scalable. The end goal is to have Daisy essentially be an AI play, and it's crazy the shit you can do with some of this stuff that's coming out, where you can totally take inputs and based on like our experience, like you can fine tune models and stuff like that to actually have like a game plan that's automatically created based on the customized inputs. And so that becomes a really exciting world, because you have all of these artists, like all they would have to do is essentially check in every week, and we could make this kind of whole game plan that's, ideally pretty solid based on our experience from the management group and, the kind of fine-tuned AI to really create like an awesome game plan. So effectively kind of democratizing some of that artist management or record label knowledge to, any artist who needs it.
Yeah, it's kind of like what you were saying just now about how big believer of the daily kind of small steps day to day will build to something. That's kind of what it's doing. It's giving the artist like, hey, it's not that being a musician isn't this big scary thing that like, oh yeah, you have to do all these things. But what you're doing is, you're giving them those. Today, all you have to do is this and this. Tomorrow, this and this. But you're basically giving them those tiny little steps that they can do day to day,
Yes, exactly. 100%. And like, and then ideally those will compound over time, and that's going to be your best potential of success. Like not everyone will make it, but your best potential of success as an artist is staying the course over the long term, doing the little things. And I don't know. It's interesting having this conversation, because I'm still trying to figure out exactly the ways to position this platform, because there's a lot of shit that I want to kind of build into it and talk through. So this is a huge one. So are y'all familiar with Duolingo? Have you used that app or know about the language learning app?
Yeah.
I'm learning Mandarin right now.
Okay, cool. Fire.
Ni hao.
So I know that's kind of an out of nowhere question, but Duolingo is actually fascinating, because the way it works is essentially they are rewarding consistent action using gamification and behavioral science. And your expectation with Duolingo is not that you're going to learn the language tomorrow. The expectation with Duolingo is that if you show up consistently over like a 6-7 year time horizon, you will have learned that language. And it's actually so similar to the artist journey. And this was something that I kept seeing throughout the Quadio experience, is that like we dealt with a lot of early stage artists, people who hadn't even released their first song yet. And almost every time without fail, the expectation of that artist going into it was that their song was going to pop off. This was going to be the one on their first song, because it's so interesting in the landscape where it's like, that's what you're getting fed on TikTok, on these algorithms. You're getting fed people who are popping off. And so it's so easy to compare yourself to those people without realizing how much time they have put into it previously leading up to it. And so with this platform, like we really want to try to reframe that mindset and like help people think more process based, more consistent based. And also like it's really easy to burn out when you're chasing dopamine on your stream count and your view count on TikTok, and like you have all these metrics and numbers in your face. But what we're kind of trying to do is emulate some of the Duolingo aspects of rewarding you through gamification, through these behavioral science tactics, so that you can get your dopamine through streaks, through process based things. Like you posted a TikTok, fuck yeah, like who cares what the view count is? You worked on lyrics today, like let's go. And so ideally, like giving you dopamine on those daily actions, so that ideally, you know, in 6 years you've been putting in daily action. It's like, oh shit, you know, I have like this whole fan base, I'm like rocking stadiums. It's like ideally, you know, if you break it down like that, like you were saying, that can the hypothesis is that will lead to a lot more longevity.
Yes. Well, what's really cool about that too, and golly, bro, you're such a smart dude, and like how you think about it. It's just cool to like see your brain work.
Just out there trying shit. That's what we're up to.
But what I was gonna say is what's really cool. A couple things. One, so like are like the people who like watch and listen to this podcast are very much people who are independent, like or like it's the same circle. And it's so interesting because time and time again how these like connections and communities arise and stuff. It's because everyone is an artist and they're all trying to have their next song blow up and stuff, you know? And it's just awesome. I just feel like it's taking a step back. It's so cool to even like just have you be here, not to, you know, gas you up too much, but it's just awesome that you're here because like we're like in a weird way all going about the same mission, you know?
Totally.
And I think every artist is, you know? Like that's everyone's trying to do the same thing. And maybe if we all just, like, you know, held hands and walked together, bro.
Totally. I mean, I feel like we've actually talked about this, like, when we have calls, but that's the dopest shit is that, like, everyone is just out here trying to make some cool shit happen. And it's like, how cool is that to think about in, like, 5-6 years, connecting now, like, where everyone's going to be at if we do just, like, stay consistent, stay on this kind of journey that we're on. It's just like, it's exciting to think about, honestly.
Well, there's also, and beyond that, there's proof in the pudding. Because let's talk about this for a second. You were consistent in Quadio and now day to day. You were consistently working and always trying to get to the next thing. What that led you to do was go to LACM to meet Finlay. I mean, you know, like he was there. I don't know if you met him, but he was there. Yeah. But and then you go on, it's like you're consistent, and then you meet me, right? And then we talk, and then it's like now we were consistent in building Roseflower, and now we're talking with you. It's just like that's proof in the fact that like what you're doing is working. You know?
And it's also like it should be the most encouraging fact for literally anyone trying to do anything is that like a lot of times these days you don't have to be unique. Like I am not unique. I'm just someone who is like trying to stay the course and stay consistent over long-term time horizon. And like if you're just able to do that and just stay process-based, like so much cool shit is going to happen. And that is like, that's the best part about it. Is like, there's literally unlimited upside. Like the uncertainty is so addicting of like, you know, who's going to see my TikTok today and like hit me up, you know, it's just cool. Once you start down a process-based thing, it's just like, there's just unlimited things that come from it.
Yeah. And you kind of mentioned it earlier about how, you were learning these things in the Quadio phase. But let's talk about it specifically. Has there been any like specific moments or experiences now that you had in Quadio that you're now able to turn around and be like, day to day, easy. I did this already. You know, like how much does it relate? You know, your experience in Quadio and day to day.
Totally. I mean, I would say there hasn't been anything that's like it's easy now, but there are so many learnings just like in trying to build a company from the Quadio experience that I'm now trying to apply to day to day. Like, I mean, I guess a few are. One in particular. So when we first started Quadio, and I actually think this maps pretty similar to an artist, to be honest, but when we first started Quadio, like when I was at LACM, I don't even think our product was live yet. It was like I think it was
like a closed thing. Yeah, it was like a
PowerPoint presentation. So me and a few others, like we were in my mom's car, right? And we just like went across the country, stopping at different student centers, just like talking with students, showing them this presentation, this PowerPoint. And the trap that we fell into is that we got so much hype and people were so excited about the idea of it that we essentially let us like that fuel us on like, this shit's going to work. It's going to be the next like Facebook, you know, that kind of shit. And then we delayed actually getting the product out for so long because we're like, it's got to be perfect. It's got to be refined. All these people are waiting for it. And then as it happens for anyone who's actually like released products before, the actual behavior of how people used it was pretty different than what we expected. And the hype that we got, like the retention wasn't as great when people were actually using the product. Like, you know, there were different feature sets that we probably could have added that would have been more valuable, but we just like, we're so set in our ways from these conversations. So that, I guess, is a huge learning of get something in people's hands as soon as possible. Let the only feedback that matters be like that actual user behavior on the product. So that's why from like the very start of doing this, I've been trying to get like super early iterations out to users, to artists, to hear their thoughts, and then like kind of working with them to build the product in real time rather than just like waiting to drop something perfect and then it's not actually perfect. And I feel like it parallels the artist journey because, you know, you have all your shit in the hard drive.
Say that.
You know?
Yeah, like the artist that, oh, dude, just one more hi-hat sample, I swear, man. Like, I swear, give me one more remix and it'll work.
I think what that is that's the creative's journey, you know?
Yeah.
It's really hard when what you create is kind of your baby in a way, you know? Like, you just want to, like, make sure that everyone loves your baby as much as you do, you know? So, you put it on a pedestal, you know, slick its hair back, make sure it's got like a good little passy. I don't know what I'm saying, but you get what I'm saying. It's like,
no, I feel you 100%.
Yeah, and then like it's like you made the announcement that the baby is coming. I might be like pushing this metaphor.
Keep going into this metaphor. I like it.
Keep ripping it.
So the day of conception. No, but yeah, well, that's the whole thing. Is that's just a creative, I think, dilemma. And what I love about day to day is you are attacking that creative dilemma. You know what I mean? Like, even it's so cool how like the similarities in between what you realized in Quadio and be like, okay, no, this is something I should work on. You're now like, the whole concept of that is now being applied to day to day, specifically in you working with it, but also to help other people, because now it's not, hey, post one TikTok and then release the song, you know, or get a bunch of hype and then spend 5 weeks on marketing or 5 weeks on cover art. You know what I mean? Like, do all these one day at a time.
Yeah.
And then like
totally
get it to them quick, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And it's actually been interesting, like even in the day-to-day experience from doing this, like there have been interesting things that have popped up. Like it turns out, because I've started talking with a lot of managers too, and it turns out that managers actually have a lot of interest in a tool like this also that kind of consolidates and helps project manage their entire roster. And then also, because we have this Daisy character, helps facilitate the communication of the internal project management to the artist, which I guess right now is like pretty scattered. There's not really a tool that helps facilitate it. So it's just a good example of like, if I had just kept building some shit like we did in the Quadio experience, to be honest, like that I thought people wanted, then, you know, it might be 2 years down the line before I release anything. But now you get things out in the world and it's like, oh shit, like I had no idea that, you know, was a thing. And now you can kind of go towards that, build towards that. So yeah, a lot of cool shit happens when you can just like get stuff out in the world and then iterate on the actual feedback.
Well, hey, we are very nearly running down on time, but what I would love to say right at the end here, day to day, it's still a closed beta. It's still a behind the wall kind of thing. Is there any last things? Let's imagine right now, we don't know you. We haven't just done this podcast. We are two artists who are interested in day-to-day, how might we go about maybe finding out some more information? How might we maybe get into the beta? What would be the deal on that case?
Yeah, 100%. So I'm a big Instagram guy, and so the whole like waitlist and everything is actually just happening over IG DM. So if anyone's interested, if any artists are listening to this and feel like it could be valuable in any way, consistency, help with guidance on like what the hell to post, shit like that, hit me up on IG DMs at daytoday.app and we can talk about it. I've honestly just been hopping on calls with a lot of people who are interested just to learn more about them and just kind of, you know, talk things through before sending access. And also, yeah, if you're if you're a manager and this seems interesting or part of a record label, like anyone who just wants to chat about it, I love, as Micah knows, love hopping on chats about all this stuff. So always happy to talk through any of it and yeah, get you involved from the start.
Let's go. And I mean, there's one other thing I want to just say real quick in that context is, again, I feel like I'm gassing you so much, but you have been one of the, like, the reason why I went back and like still continue to talk to you is just because you are like not only an amazing like friendly human being, which comes across like very amicable and like that's super awesome, but it's also that you're very passionate and that passion is very contagious. So I hope that artists who are listening, managers who are listening, whoever you are who is listening, talk to this man because it's worth your time. 110%.
Hell yeah, man. I appreciate that. I mean, we got to catch up again too.
Yeah, I know. We'll kick it.
Yeah. Soon. Well, dope. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I appreciate y'all having me on too. I mean, this is super fun. This is like one of my first times actually talking about day to day. So it's fun to just kind of think through.
We got the insider.
Yeah, we got that behind the. Gotta clickbait the shit out of this, baby.
Yeah, you were here first.
The new Facebook? What? It's coming, bro. No, I was kidding.
Oh, man.
Micah.
Yes.
Where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Instagram. I'm not even going to say Twitter anymore. At Shoelace Music, spelled SHOOLACE, because that's the new artist thing that we be doing out here. Also, wait, real quick. Plug your DJ, your stuff.
Oh, yeah, your personal stuff.
Yeah, it's at FlynnRink on IG. We also have music on Spotify. FlynnRink is it's the rink we grew up playing hockey at, but we haven't released any music in a while. We're like been more on kind of the DJ stuff, but yeah, if you want some sort of average electronic pop music, check it out.
Oh, I'm so ready.
That's exactly what I'm looking for.
Exactly what you want.
That's it, dude.
Hey, my name is Finlay Matthias. You can find me on Instagram at Finlay Did It, because who did it?
Finlay did it.
That's right, baby. You can find Roseflower Records at Roseflower Records on Instagram and TikTok, at Roseflower Records on X, which is
Twitter.
awful, and at www.roseflowerrecords.com. You find us on Threads at Roseflower Records. I keep forgetting about that one.
We be trying, bro.
Yeah, we're trying. We're trying.
So many things.
And you can email myself and Micah at ournames@roseflowerrecords.com. I'm waiting for the day that someone emails literally our names at roseflowerrecords.com.
Well, now you just jinxed it, bro. Now someone's going to do it, bro. Filling up my inbox with scam, bro.
All right. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Joe, thank you again for coming down.
Thanks for having me.
On the call.
Don't actually leave, though.
Yeah, don't actually head out, yeah.
Okay.
But, guys, thank you so much. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.